Thank you for watching Little Bighorn Treasure Hunting Sources number 40. I'm calling this Sitting Bull Slow, Was He Murdered? The replacement of Major James Walsh from the Northwest Mounted Police, the Canadian Mounties, the American Indians' best friend in Canada, was forced to retire, and this made Sitting Bull and his followers starve, and they had to go back to the United States. It was said that Sitting Bull had so many weapons and belongings that he used carts instead of travois for travel. In Robert Utley's book on page 192, his carts are mentioned. After being moved around, he finally moved into his farm where he had 2 cabins. On December 15, 1890, under orders from the Indian agent McLaughlin to Sergeant Bullhead of the Indian Police to arrest Sitting Bull and do not allow him to escape. Along with 44 other police and Sitting Bull's brother-in-law, Gray Eagle, they burst into Sitting Bull's cabin in the pre-dawn. He sent his wife to his cabin across the road for his clothes because he was naked. He wanted to wear specific clothes to go to the agent. After dressing, he was escorted to the door, and reading from Robert Utley's book, page 300 from 302, I have some excerpts here I'd like to share. And Sitting Bull cried, "Let me go. I'll go without assistance." They emerged from the door and paused, Bullhead and Shave's Head flanking Sitting Bull, the former grasping his right arm, the latter his left. Sergeant Red Tomahawk stood in the rear, pistol in hand. The gray circus horse he got from Buffalo Bill Cody was saddled and ready outside. Then Crowfoot, his son, chided to his father, "You always called yourself a brave chief. Now you are allowing yourself to be taken by the Sescamaza," which is metal breast, because the Indian police wore a metal badge on their breasts. For several moments, Sitting Bull lost himself in thought. "Then I shall not go," he declared. "Come on now," implored Bullhead. "Do not listen to anyone." Bullhead turned to Jumping Bull, who had come unarmed on the scene, and asked his aid. "Brother," said Jumping Bull, "you ought to go with the police and not cause any trouble." "Uncle," Lone Man added, "nobody is going to hurt you. The agent wants to see you, and then you are to come back. So please do not let the others lead you into trouble." Sitting Bull hung back. Bullhead and Shavehead tightened their grip and pulled. Red Hawk pushed from behind. They moved toward the waiting horse. The crowd went wild. People shook their fists, cursed the police, and shouted, "You shall not take our chief." The police tried to keep order, recalled Lone Man, but it was like trying to extinguish a treacherous prairie fire. Suddenly, Catch the Bear shouldered his Winchester, took aim, and squeezed the trigger. The bullet tore into Bullhead's right side and sent him sprawling. As he fell, he turned his revolver up and shot Sitting Bull full in the chest. Red Hawk fired another bullet into the back of Sitting Bull's head. An instant later, Strikes the Kettle fired, the bullet punching into Shave's Head's stomach. All 3 fell together in one heap. As the 3 men crumpled on the ground, Lone Man sprang at the smoking muzzle of the weapon that had gunned down his relative and superior. Catch the Bear swung it toward Lone Man and pulled the trigger, but it misfired. Lone Man tore the rifle from his grasp, clubbed him with the butt, and shot him dead. Infuriated, Sitting Bull's men swarmed over the metal breasts with knives, clubs, and guns. It was a vicious battle at close quarters. Bullets laced the little battleground, fired at point-blank range. Police fire killed 5 of Sitting Bull's followers, including Blackbird, Spotted Horn Bull, and Brave Thunder. Jumping Bull, who had counseled submission and who was not even armed with a knife, also died, with his son chased them wounded. 3 more Bull Ghosts, Strikes the Kettle, and another Brave Thunder dropped with wounds that did not prove fatal. 3 more bullets plowed into the wounded Bullhead. 4 policemen took fatal rounds. Sergeant Little Eagle, Privates Afraid of Soldiers, Strong Arm Hawkman No. 2, the same who carried Carrington's letter to McLaughlin that day. Private Middle sustained a painful wound that cost him a foot. In only a few minutes, the bloody fight ended as abruptly as it had begun. The dancers broke away and raced to a grove of trees along the river behind Sitting Bull's cabins. Now, here, after they killed Sitting Bull and you've got all the dead, they only had one wagon and an ambulance to take the wounded Indian police as well as the dead, and they needed to bring back Sitting Bull's body, and they didn't want him to be hauled in the same wagon as the Indian police. But they had to, so they only allowed it if they put Sitting Bull on the bottom, which they did with the other policemen on top of it. And they took him back to the agency, and he was not even allowed to be buried with the police. He was put in a separate place in a pauper's grave, and it was completely away from everybody else. Well, then his brother-in-law Gray Eagle, and I believe One Bull, his nephew, went and picked him up, and then they reburied him on a scaffolding. Then they again, McLaughlin took him back to the post to be reburied because he didn't want him on the scaffolding. Now here, it's like I said, it's amazing the things I get. And I'm going to kind of do these a little out of order by the way I received them. I received this Colt 1860 Army, and when I sent pictures to Wendell about it, he couldn't believe it. He remembered one of his employees showing this to him. He tried to purchase it from him. But this is one of the burial guns that Sitting Bull was buried with. And here's the history that Wendell sent me. This Colt 1860 Army, serial number 173252. During my examination of this Colt 1860 Colt Army percussion 44 caliber revolver, I discovered the name Sitting Bull Slow Hunk Papa written on the right grip. As part of the following Togia message: Sitting Bull Slow, Bobtail Bull, Hunk Papa, buried Gray Eagle, reburied brother. The Sitting Bull Slow, Bobtail Bull are also found written on the left grip, and the side of the action is shown on illustrations 2 and 3 respectively. Bobtail Bull is also found on the trigger guard, and both Sitting Bull Slow and Bobtail Bull are written on the bottom of the backstrap. After Sitting Bull's death, he was buried on a burial scaffold. Later on, Standing Rock Indian agent James McLaughlin ordered that the Indian police to remove his body and place it on the coffin for reburial at the military cemetery at Fort Yates. There were two brothers who were members of the police detail tasked with the reburial, Daniel and Maurice Bobtail Bull. After Sitting Bull's body was taken down from the scaffold, the men noticed he did not have a weapon, but they felt it was important for Sitting Bull to have a weapon for his afterlife. So they placed his revolver 173252, which they had taken from Sitting Bull's cabin on the day he was killed, in the coffin with Sitting Bull and buried the coffin. Sometime later, Sitting Bull's coffin was dug up again for reburial by Clarence Gray Eagle at the location of the mouth of the Grand River overlooking the Missouri. Clarence Gray Eagle was the son of Gabriel Gray Eagle, the brother of Sitting Bull's wives, 4 robes and seen by the nations. Before Clarence buried Sitting Bull again, he opened the coffin and removed the revolver. Then he buried the coffin and encased it in concrete. It was the final resting place for Sitting Bull. Now, he also put railroad rails or steel rails and 20 tons of concrete over this. But the initial burial, which is this piece here, my brother Dale and I were at the Las Vegas Antique Show this January, and we're looking for first model 1873 Winchesters. We're walking rapidly up and down the aisles, and I literally, if you see here, at a fast walk, notice that mark right there, and here you see the mark there, and I stopped, and I told Dale, this has got writing on it. We looked at it, he took pictures, we sent it to Wendell, we walked maybe 4 tables down, and Wendell called back and said, that's the other burial gun of Sitting Bull. Now, what's the odds of that? So, this one is the history on this Colt 1860 Army, serial number 114962. During my examination of this 1860 Colt Army percussion revolver, 114962, I discovered the name Sitting Bull Hunk Papa written on the left grip as part of the following Togia message. Brother Sitting Bull Slow, Hunk Papa, Brother Gray Eagle, buried, Sitting Bull, slow. A second togi message is found on the right grip which states, Brother Sitting Bull, slow, Hunk Papa, Gray Eagle, Hunk Papa, is shown on illustration 2. A few days after Sitting Bull's death, they had already buried him in the pauper's grave. On December 15th, 1890, Gray Eagle, the brother of Sitting Bull's wives, 4 robes and seen by the nations, buried Sitting Bull on a scaffold not far from his home on the Grand River. Gray Eagle placed one of Sitting Bull's revolvers, this 1860 Colt Army percussion revolver, on the scaffold near the body. When Standing Rock Indian agent James McLaughlin ordered the Indian police to remove Sitting Bull's body and place it in a coffin for reburial at the military cemetery at Fort Yates, Gray Eagle removed the revolver and took it home. Gray Eagle was a member of the Indian police force and was present during Sitting Bull's death, and I believe he took this serial number 114962 from Sitting Bull's cabin and then buried it with him initially. So here I have both of the 2 burial guns. This one stayed longer with Sitting Bull's body, and this one was only a few days buried with him, but both of them were Sitting Bull's pieces. Now, I think that's pretty cool. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I can't even believe these things came to me, but they have. And God bless you, and I've got other ones coming. Thank you.